What's up, guys? It's the Tackle HD podcast, and today we have late March fishing reports for Lake of the Ozarks, Truman Lake, and Table Rock. Plus, Ozarks fishing guide Jack Uxa is here, and he's going to tell us what he would use this time of year if you're looking to catch a big bass or if you're looking to catch a lot of bass. Plus, I'm going to tell you why I am so sunburnt right now. The answer actually ties in perfectly with our conversation we're going to have with Jack Uxa, and it has to do with the catching of a fish that weighed over 20 pounds. It's the Tackle HD podcast. Make sure you click that subscribe button, and let's jump right into it with this week's Truman Lake report from Fish 30's Dave McCormick.
Hey, Dave from Fish 30 here. Got your Truman Lake report. In the last week, I've been on Truman 3 separate times, 2 afternoons and 1 tournament on Saturday. What was it? It was USA Bassin. It was the USA Bassin on Truman Lake. It was the kickoff, and I'm telling you, a 774 came in as big fish. It took almost 19 pounds to win. Took 13.35 to get a check. That was 6th place. I know, because I think I came in 7th. I had 12.89. And I'm going to tell you, I lost 3 fish by the side of the boat that would have probably put us where we needed to be to win or be right there. And you ask, well, Dave, what'd you catch them on? I caught them on the brightest colored stick baits I could come across. I want to see a bright colored belly. And we're casting those kind of parallel, 45-degree kind of casts up the bank, but it really needs to be shallow. And I know that puts your jerkbait in danger, and I apologize. I did break 2 of them doing it. So it is what it is. Those fish are up there sunning themselves on the big rocks, especially those big females, and you need to get a bait up there. And until we cross the 52 or 3 or 4 degree mark, the stick bait will work. But there's going to be a whole new thing that's just on the verge of starting. It's going to be a crawdaddy crankbait pattern. I'm just falling in love with this HD tackle head knocker in that clear red craw, like clear red phantom color. I'm also really loving this new Berkeley flat side. Look at that. That's kind of a matte finish. It's a little smaller bill, and that does work sometimes when those fish are up even a little shallower. But and if we've gotten some rain, and so the water clarity is going to change a little bit. When it does, I'm going to change just up, and I'm going to get a little bit of chartreuse yellow, little brighter bait out there. And if it really gets going, I'm going to go to a bright red color. That's that new Berkeley flat side right there, like with a phantom, with a coffin bill is what we used to call it. I'm not sure what the name is now, but it catches fish. I'm really loving this HD tackle one too. So it comes with 2 in a package for about the same price as 1. So I don't see how you can beat that, because you're gonna do it. So the technique's real simple. I want you to pull into a creek and pick a secondary, a point back in, halfway back, that has some depth on it. Pull the boat up in 7 or 10 foot of water and parallel cast in front of the boat. I want you to kind of search for those rocks, and it's kind of a dug, and sometimes the bite's real strong and wants to pull the rod out of your hand, but sometimes it's just kind of mushy. It almost feels like you got a wet towel down there, and you just swing on into it, and it could very well be one of the biggest fish you catch all year. The fish are all pre-spawn, full of eggs. It's an exciting time on the lake. Things are changing. Spinner baits right after this coming on, so things change fast. You got to kind of that's why you got all those fishing poles on that deck of that boat anyway. So we're going to see you in 2 more weeks. I'll have another fishing report for Truman Lake for you on then, and I'll have been out on the lake several times too since then. So till next time, check me out on YouTube, Fish 30, 106 tournament related videos. Most of them are tournaments. So check me out, like and subscribe. That'll help my channel. And that's why I'm really doing these reports for you guys. So hopefully that equates into some subscribers. If not, get out and fish Try these techniques. They will work, I promise. Till next time.
Now with your Lake of the Ozarks report, here's Jack Uxa.
Well, guys, this is Jack Uxa. I'm a fishing guide on Lake of the Ozarks, and Tackle HD and me have been working together the last little bit, and we're coming out with a series of videos that they're going to be putting together, and they're asking for a fishing report. And right now, we're talking, the mid to end of March. It's a very good time to be out in the water. This is probably the single best time of the whole year to go out there and catch the biggest fish of your lifetime, basically. From now until the first week of April is when the bass are going to be weighing the heaviest. And it's just, I had a customer catch a 10-pounder a few years ago about this time frame. And it's a special time of the year. It doesn't mean it's always going to be easy this time of year, because we do have a lot of cold fronts and a lot of weather changes in general. Huge drastic warm fronts, big cold fronts, rain events. But if you stick to it, it can be magical in March, and it could be challenging too. But the A rig here, hopefully you guys can see this. I've got the Tackle HD swimmers on here. This is a color called Crystal Shad. That there has been awesome for me. We had about a 20-pound bag on Friday. We had a weather front coming in, and man, we just smashed them on it. It was awesome. That bait doesn't always work, but if it can work, you better be throwing it, because it's unbelievable how the big ones really key in on that. Of course, we've got jerk baits have been a big player for us. A new one here that I've been throwing. Hopefully y'all can see this. Maybe. This is a Table Rock Shad color. That's been a good one. These fiddlesticks I've been throwing for the last, we'll say this past winter. They're a lot louder than a normal traditional jerk bait. And if you've got a lot of wind, or if you've got some dirtiness to your water, those extra loud rattles have been really helpful. And I'm throwing those on secondary points with some wind on them, and that's been awesome. On the warmer days, that's when I'm getting out the crankhead crankbaits. I'm covering a lot warmer. I'm covering a lot of water with these things. They're very similar to a lot of other crankbaits that have been popular here in the Ozarks for several years. Very similar to the standard wigglewort. Everybody's kind of knocking off the wigglewort, and I mean, they're making them better. Honestly, they cast way better than the old wigglewort. They got better hooks, and they dive deeper. I mean, it's just everything we've been looking for fishing these big reservoirs that have got, pretty steep, steep sides. We've got a lot of deep water in these man-made reservoirs compared to those smaller lakes. And that's what you need. You need something that's got a bigger bill on it, like these guys, and be able to cover ground. Spinnerbaits are going to be a big player here right now. We're getting some rain tonight, and that's going to start to put some more color to the water. When that happens, hopefully, we get the color in the water, and then we get some sunshine. That'll help to bring more and more of the fish up high in the water column, and that's when your spinnerbait's going to be a big player. This is a great spinnerbait that Tackle HD is coming. I don't know if this is going to show up very well, but it's called the Ozark Flash. Okay. This has been around for a long time. The great thing about this is they've got half of the blades painted, and then half of the blades are just standard, either gold or silver. And this has been a great bait for a long time. And I'm really glad to see it was kind of going away. People weren't able to buy it anymore. And then these guys brought it back, and it's been great. Spinnerbaits in general are going to be better for when the fish are moving more towards the wood. Right now they're on the rock, and you just got to play with different types of rock. But very soon here, they're going to start to, change over and be more focused on the shallow wood, the laydowns, and that's where the spinnerbait is going to be really the big ticket. And I don't know. I will like to touch on the crappie right now. The crappie are about the best of the year. They're in really big schools. and you can use your electronics to find them. Pretty soon here, as we get into April, the schools, they'll still be hot and they'll be a little bit shallower then. But the reason why I like right now in March as my favorite month of the year to crappie fish is because they're in really big schools. I mean, you could pull up to a spot and spend an hour or more on a big wad of them, and you're just catching one after another. They've come out with these pro striker baits here lately, and I just started using these here recently. They're very similar. They're just a small minnow looking imitation, and man, you get a ton of them in a pack. And I mean, honestly, the bodies themselves, they last a long time also, and you get a lot of them in each pack. So you're going to save a lot of money when you go to those things. And it's just like everything else. It's a minnow imitating bait. Um, you know, honestly, guys, live scope, forward facing sonar, everybody's got their own opinions about it, whatever. But I don't think you can catch a lot of those fish without it right now. The way these fish are just kind of suspending up in the water column, out from the structure, out from the docks. You can catch some without it, but it really is helpful, and because they're not really relating to a lot of stuff right now. They're absorbing some of that sunlight, and so they're about 5 to 6 feet deep over 30 feet of water, and they might be kind of loosely relating to a dock or a brush pile, but they're not right on it. And there you go. So I'm using a bobber and a jig combination. I'm twitching it over top of their heads, and they're coming up and sucking it down, and we're yanking on them. It's really good time of year for crappie. And as things warm up, I won't be doing as much crappie fishing. I'll be doing a whole lot more bass fishing and putting away the crappie rods here, as things continue to warm up. And when I say warm up, right now our water temperature is in the 40s still. So it's still kind of chilly. But it has significantly warmed in the last few weeks. And we're depending on what part of the lake you're at, you're looking at mid 40s, like 45, 46, and then other parts of the lake about 49, 50. So most of the water right now is really clear. Most of the lake is clear, even up around the 40, 50 mile marker, all the way down to Bagnell Dam. It's clear just about everywhere I've been, which is, that's going to be changing as we get some more rain and stuff like that. Truman Lake's got a little bit of water in it, and so we're going to see a little bit of flow through the dams. Um, you know, for me living in Osage Beach, I really like to see Truman Lake go about 20 feet high, and that means we'll have a lot of good fishing in the future. But as of right now, at least the water's really clear, and it's everybody's catching them. Everybody's having a good time. So that's the fishing report for mid to end of March at Lake of the Ozarks.
We've got more from Jack in just a couple of minutes, but right now, let's take a look at Table Rock Lake. Here's your late March report from professional guide Matt Fielder.
Hi guys, it's Matt Fielder with MJF Guide Service and Modern Outdoor Tackle. Today, we're in Modern Outdoor Tackle here in Nixon, Missouri. We're going to be giving you a Table Rock Lake fishing report. The lake level is 913.82. That's a little below full pool by 1 foot. The water temperature right now is 51 to 55 degrees. It'll start in the morning around 50, 51, and then by late afternoon you should be seeing 55, depending on where you're at in the lake. Sometimes the lake doesn't jump up that much, but that's something to be looking for this time of the year. With that being said, those fish are starting to move up a little bit shallower than they had been in the past few weeks. So the Spro rock crawler right now is a key bait for us. I like throwing this red crawl this time of the year. It's a typical springtime color. Just throw it up, secondary points, main lake points even. Sometimes you can find them in the backs of the creeks, especially if there's some water running in on some channel swing banks or pea gravel banks. It's a really good place to catch some fish on a Spro rock crawler. Also a Tackle HD crankhead. It's a really good bait to be doing that. One thing though is if you're running into some moss, you may want to pick up something different. That's when I'll turn to throwing a jerk bait. Same places, you can throw the jerk bait in the same places, secondary points, main lake points, Sometimes those fish are suspended, so this is a great bait to do that and keep yourself out of that moss. This is a Pro Blue color by Megabass. This is probably one of my favorite colors of jerk bait, especially on Table Rock. We've got a clear lake. It imitates shad extremely well and gets a lot of bites. And I'm actually getting bigger bites right now on a jerk bait than probably any other bait. Another bait, because the fish are suspended so much right now, is a single swim bait. I like throwing the Megabass Spark Shad in the 3-inch personally. It's a little bit different than a Kitech or any other kind of swim bait. It just gives them a different look. They're seeing a lot of Kitechs, even though the Kitechs are really good and they catch a ton of fish, so don't get me wrong there. But I throw something a little bit different. The Megabass Spark Shad, this is the USA Albino. It's probably my favorite color. I'll pair it up on just a regular jig head. This one's a Divine jig head by 6 Cents that we carry here in the shop. So come check them out. They're pretty good. If the bite's extremely tough, or you just like feeling the bottom constantly and you don't feel comfortable getting off and fishing for suspended fish, pick up a Pee-wee football jig. It's a really good bait, especially for beginners or even guys that are experienced. You can throw this around brush piles, just on main lake gravel points or 45-degree points. Really good bait to get some bites. This color right here is Bass Whacker. It's my favorite color. Either this or PB&J, probably my 2 favorite colors for Table Rock. Really, really good bait in tough conditions, or if you just really like feeling the bottom, get yourself around that cover and you'll catch a lot of fish throwing that Pee-wee football jig. A bite that's kind of fading away right now is the A-rig. It's been a big player, as you saw last week on Table Rock. The Anglers in Action took a little over 22 pounds, almost 23 pounds to win it. So the bass are really biting. A lot of fish were caught on an A-rig as well as cranking last week, but this bait is kind of dying off a little bit, but you are able to still pick some fish off and maybe even get a big giant bite. I like to pair the A-rig with a Tackle HD swimmer. They're a little bit more durable. When you're casting it out there, letting it sink, sometimes the Kitech will rip on you a little bit. Even though the Kitech's a really good bait, the Tackle HD swimmer is a little bit, more durable, so that's a bait to keep in mind. Going forward, a big player that's about to happen is a glide bait. We carry several glide baits here in the shop, from $29 all the way up to $150. This is a Golden Belt Custom. It's a really good time to start throwing it. You can get it on bluff ends. You can go down a pea gravel bank. You'll be surprised at the type of fish that you see coming after it, and you're going to catch the fish of a lifetime on it. So come into Modern Outdoor Tackle, check it out, and come on a trip with me, MJF Guide Service, and let's go fishing. Thank you.
All right, Jack Uxa, welcome to the program. You are down in Osage Beach right now, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep. I've
Okay.
lived here for quite a few years, and I've been guiding I've been guiding since '03, but not all of it was on Lake of the Ozarks. But
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a lot to get to, and full disclosure, you and I actually go back over 20 years. We graduated from the same high school in South St. Louis City in the late 90s, and now here we are in 2022 over something like Zoom that didn't even exist in those days, doing a fishing podcast together. So it's great to reconnect with you, man.
hey, man, yeah, I mean, it's been over 20 years since I've talked to you.
Yeah.
Literally, I graduated high school and I pretty much left St. Louis, and it's ever since I've been crazy fisherman. So it's crazy to connect back in this way that we literally went to high school together,
Yeah.
and we haven't talked since, and here we are talking tonight.
Well, it's funny because as I was, sitting around with the Tackle HD guys, kind of planning out these first handful of episodes, and they're throwing some names out there like, okay, Casey Scanlon, and we've got, Haley Dawn, one of the influencers on our team, Jack Uxa. And I was like, Jack Uxa. I'm like, I went to high school with Jack Uxa. I know he was a big fisherman. They're like, yeah, Jack does stuff with us. So, so great to be able to connect with you here. Fishing has has reconnected us, like you said, after 20 plus years. And I really lost track of your journey after high school. I knew that you were doing fishing stuff. I found that out a few years ago that you were a guide. But let's kind of step back a few years. You grew up in South St. Louis City, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was concrete everywhere and people and highways and all that kind of stuff. So it starts at Paul's Bait and Tackle, which is a small
Yes.
local mom and pop type of tackle store. Yeah, you remember it.
Sure.
That was my first job ever, man. I mean, I started there. I remember my first few days. I was like literally counting night crawlers and putting 20 in a bucket, and that was my first couple days. I mean, I just turned 16. I
Mhm.
had talked to them when I was 15. I'm like, hey guys, when I turned 16, you think you would have a position available for me? And they said, yeah, yeah, come on in. Let's get things going. And so then when I turned 16, got a job for them. Started off just the smallest of small, and with live bait, taking care of the cricket cages
Yeah.
and just all kinds of gross stuff. But
Yeah.
also, eventually, got a little, a couple months in. Well, then, I started, dealing with a lot more customers, and
Mhm.
I was fishing. I was fishing a lot even back then. I mean, I was fishing all the little local ponds and the local rivers, and I was taking some. I was meeting some customers, and I was telling them, hey, you might want to try, this crawfish jig,
Mhm.
or you might want to try this worm or something like that. And, they'd go out on the weekend, and then they'd come back in the next week and say, Jack, man, we really appreciate you telling us what to buy. We bought, $10, $12 worth of stuff, and it worked, and we caught more fish this past weekend than we have the last 3 months. And we really appreciate you. And so, a couple customers, and then a couple bigger, and just started growing. And so the people at Paul's Bait and Tackle, I mean, I really look at them as like family almost. You know, they were super great. I used that job as some momentum to get a job at Bass Pro Shops in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
After we graduated high school,
Mhm.
I got a job at Bass Pro in Springfield, and at the time there was only one Bass Pro in the whole world. And now there's like, I don't know how many Bass Pros there are, probably 60.
Mhm.
And so Springfield, Missouri, I moved down there, and that was awesome. Because prior to that, I was pretty much a pond fisherman. I pretty much fished small lakes and in some rivers and stuff. But those guys are the ones that really pushed me to start fishing Table Rock and Stockton and Pomme de Terre and other places where there's a lot of tournaments and these big reservoirs that were pretty foreign to me at the time.
Mhm.
And and plus boats. Boats is a big thing. Prior to that,
Right.
I was pretty much a John boat guy. And so Bass Pro Shops was a great you know deal to continue to have my fishing career evolved.
Mhm.
And so I worked there for a few years. That was a great experience. They got me into tournaments. I won some small little derbies. Started just helping more customers, and that was good. Learning how to communicate with people. Um, that's a good thing. Um,
It's
what
interesting. So much of what you learned in the aisles carries over to what you're doing now out on the boat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I mean, tournament fishing, I've always been a tournament fisherman, but that's never been my main focus. My
Mhm.
main focus has just been like day-to-day work, really. And so, showing up the tackle stores and, that kind of stuff. I mean, and working there, it's kind of like guiding now. I mean, I make a little chunk versus, the tournaments, like Casey Scanlon, he's part of the tackle HD crew. That guy, he guides a little bit on the side, but he primarily tournament fishes.
Right.
That's the main deal.
Mhm.
He's probably in New York right now or Florida or somewhere. He's traveling all over the place, and that works for him, and that's great for him. But for me, I've always just been a guide. I started guiding in '03. I went to college down there in Springfield, Missouri. and that was a great experience. And I started working for a resort that was right along the Minnesota Canadian border in the summer times, and I started guiding for them, and that
Hmm.
was really fun fishing up there. That was smallmouth, northern pike, some lake trout, some walleye, all that kind of stuff, and that was a really good experience. And they only needed they didn't really need full-time year-round employees. They needed people to come up in the summertime,
Hmm.
and that worked out good with my college schedule.
Okay.
And so I started guiding with them. That was a great experience. I loved going up north, smallmouth up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You need to take your son up there sometime.
I do. I do. He's getting more and more into fishing. He's 8. So I've said
Couple
it on this show
years.
before. It's like if there's no action in 15, 20 minutes, the interest in
Mm.
fishing from him just takes a quick nosedive. And
Well,
even when the fishing's good, I mean, he can catch 10 fish in an hour. Now he's bored with catching fish, So it's like it's baby steps with him. So I try not to burn
yeah.
him out. But
You
yeah,
might
I
want
would
to
love
wait
to
a
get up
few
there.
more years, because one thing about going to those northern, places, there's nothing else to do. I mean, you're
True.
probably gonna have internet. A lot of the places, depending on where you go, you might not even have electricity.
Mm,
So that
yeah,
could be
that's
that
the
could
only
be
reason you're there is to fish.
Yeah, the only thing to do is fish, and at the night, a lot of times your only entertainment is a deck of cards, so you
Yeah.
might wanna wait till he gets a little bit older for that, but it was a great experience for me. I really had a great time, and, shoot, I mean, all that stuff is covered with ice now, those poor souls up there, gosh, but, I worked for Gunflint Lodge up there, and they're right along the Canadian, border. It was awesome.
Okay. So when did you launch your business at Lake of the Ozarks?
Right after that, I got married. I married a girl from Salem, Missouri, and Angela. She'll probably watch this at some point. And I knew I didn't want to continue going back up there. That was a great summer gig,
Mhm.
but it wasn't more of enough of a year-round income. And to
Yeah.
be a husband, you got to be responsible. So right after that, we moved here to Lake of the Ozarks, and and I started working for a resort called Tantera. It
Sure.
was, nowadays it's called Margaritaville.
Uh-huh.
And, I got in good with those guys, got to know this lake better. I mean, I've always kind of fished Lake of the Ozarks since the late 80s, um, and through the 90s and stuff like that. But, then I really kind of dove in and, had boats and really started focusing in on getting my captain's license and guiding and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a smooth transition, really. It was no big deal. I mean, I had already had so much experience in all those other things, so it was still continue to help people, and just how to communicate with people, like why to throw this lure over that lure. That was
Of
all pretty
course.
much normal for me.
So most of your customer base, is it tourists? Is it people who are just down at Lake of the Ozarks looking to get out on the water and have a better shot at catching fish? Or are you taking out a lot of locals that are looking to kind of take it to that next level, catch something bigger than they're used to, catch more, catch a new species that they're having trouble with? What do you find you're typically taking out?
This time of year, I get a lot of serious tournament fishermen that are, just want to do better in the tournament scene. And, they've had some mediocre success in the past.
Mhm.
My customer base will really change as we go through the season. I'm getting a lot of crappie fishermen right now because
Okay.
crappie fishing is so good. And then I'm getting a lot of people that are like, tournament focused. And then it'll change a little bit as we get into May. We're starting to see warmer weather. The bass fishing actually gets a lot easier in May, but we don't have as nearly as many tournaments. And so, you know, I'll I'll just make, I get tourists. I've got people that are second homeowners. That's a big thing down here. A
Mhm.
lot of people are retiring to the lake or just moving away from wherever they're from. If they're from Illinois or Iowa, we
Mhm.
get a lot of people from out of state. I
Okay.
remember before, living here and working here, I kind of thought it was like a Kansas City, St. Louis kind of lake, but
Mhm.
it's really not. It's really, you know, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa,
Mhm.
all those kind of places. They come here and they come here in droves. So
It's
that's who I
wild.
take out. I take out families, beginners,
Yeah.
tourists, all kinds of different people. I mean,
I've probably been on 6, paid guided charters in my life. I think one was like it was kind of a bachelor party thing, like the
yeah,
day before the wedding, all the guys went out and did it down in Miami.
yeah.
And then every other one has been either me and my wife or me, my wife, and now our son. And I can tell you only on one fishing charter in my life would I say that we went out there and we just slayed them. It's always been fairly slow. And I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, you can't control that. You can control that as best to the best of your ability. But I mean, there's some things that if it's just a bad fishing day, so the reason I am sunburnt as all get out right now, and I don't know if you can tell, but I am peeling horribly. I was on a charter 5 days ago in Puerto Rico.
Oh, yeah, you were down south, man. How
Yeah. So we went down to Puerto Rico and I was kind of like, what do you think? You guys want to do some fishing? My wife's like, yeah, cool. Let's do it. And she looked it up a little bit and she's like, it's all tarpon fishing, it says. I'm like, that's fine. We're going for it. So we went out with a little backwater tarpon outfit, tiny little boat. They took the 3 of us out for 4 hours and we got one. We got one fish.
no, really?
Yeah, that was it. We had about 5 bites. They're tough to land. They got the real hard mouths. So we had about 5 times where, it was on there and 20 seconds later, it's gone. But we did get one. You see the pic. It was like,
Beautiful.
20 plus pound. Yeah, 20 something pounds. I don't know exactly. The guy didn't have a scale for whatever reason, but it's interesting. Like I'm thinking the whole time, like, what's going through this guide's head as we are now 2.5 hours into this and not one fish has been on this boat. And I'm sure I'm sure you've been there before, like it happens from time to time. Like I mean, like at what point do you start to freak out? Like, I don't know if I'm going to get this guy a fish.
Yeah, you get pretty desperate pretty easily. It's not nearly as I mean, every year this time of year, we have a group of people that try to get into it because it's their lifelong dream, and they're around for a couple years and then they fade away. It's
Mhm.
so much more difficult than what people think it is. And now maybe down south it might be easier. I mean, I don't know about certainly don't know about Mexico. But,
Mhm.
as far as freshwater is concerned and bass fishing is concerned, it's way more difficult than what people think it is. And it's way more complicated. I mean, bass fishing in general, I mean, I'll do some crappie fishing here and there, but for the most part, I'm a bass guy. Okay. And man, there's a reason why I've got 15 rods on the deck. I mean, if I'm going out even by myself, I mean, I'll go out scouting by myself. I'll have 15, 17 rods on the deck, all rigged up perfect and, ready to rock and roll to try to tackle what I think is going to go on. And it's still frustrating. I mean, it's something else, but that's part of the whole search and
Right.
the evolution of it all. I mean, you use a lot of past history. You try to use as much, science to it as you can, and
Mhm.
even then, it still doesn't you know, make it always work. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think the best one I've ever had was down in Isla Morada.
nice.
And it was the deep sea charter and it was just my wife and I. It was a private deal and I get seasick
Yeah,
in a hurry. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So do
I
I.
hadn't I
So
hadn't
do
done
most
anything like
people.
that in a long time. So I was kind of like forgot about it. I'm like, whatever. That was a long time ago. We get out there and I'm in trouble quick. And then we hook into something and I caught a real nice sized barracuda. Like, 10, 12 pound barracuda. Took forever to get in. But after that, I'm like, is there somewhere else we can go to where the water's a little bit calmer? So we took like a 40-minute ride. He's like trying to like salvage this trip because I'm in bad shape. And he took us to this mangrove area where this little bay, and pulls right up to this spot, and boom, 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 mangrove snapper, one after the next. We caught like 30 of them, plus 4 sharks. It was like this guy was on, man. I mean, he went from me ready to just jump overboard and just, call it quits to turning it into the greatest fishing day of my life. So I mean, you've got to, as a guide, I mean, you got to know, okay, if this is going on, I got to pivot and do this. I got to pivot and do this. I got to pivot and do this to keep that customer happy. I mean, it's an art, man.
Yeah, yeah, and there's definitely times where we start off bass fishing, we transition to this, we go to this. I mean, there's times I'll do white bass, catfish, crappie, and largemouth all in one, short period of time, and somehow I make it work. I mean,
Yeah,
um, it's not to say it's easy, and I carry a lot of equipment at my boat.
sure.
you know, I mean,
Do
just
you find that most people that come to you are looking for quantity or quality? You know what I mean? Like, are they just wanting to just knock them dead all day, or are they more interested in like, I want that trophy bass today. I want the big
a
one.
lot of people they might say they want the trophy bass, but when it comes down to actually trying to, you know, mm, be very patient for that and do the right things for that, they don't realize what they're signing up for. And so more often than not, they go to the quantity
Just take
after a
me
short
somewhere
period
where
of
they're
time.
biting right now.
We've got this one tournament every year called the Big Bass Bash here. It's a spring and fall. It's amateur all over the place. None of the pros, none of the fishing guides, none of the big tournament fishermen are allowed to fish in it. And it's $100,000. I mean, it's a big deal. And so I'll get some people for that every year. They and I see the worst part is I've actually helped a couple people win it in the past. I've had some customers win it. And so I get more people calling me for it, and they want me to take them out and show them where all the 7, 8, 9 pounders are. I'm like, well, I'll show you as much as I can, but it's not that easy. I mean, there's not a lot of 7, 8 pounders out there. And, but if you get lucky on the right day, you'll win $100,000. And, so anyways, I'll take people out for that. And, we try to stay very do the right things for that. But for the most part of the time, 99% of my guide trips, we're looking for just numbers. We're looking to catch fish. Of course, quality is great too. I mean, we had 20-pound bags a couple days ago, so that was great.
Nice.
But for the most part, that was also granted we had perfect weather. We had several days of sunshine, warming temperatures, mid-March, and then we had a storm front coming in, and we had a good cloud cover and west wind, and that was just perfect. I mean, that was what you look for every
So what you're saying is that perfect time is after a few sunny, warm days, and then right before that storm hits. That's
yeah.
that perfect little window. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. Especially for me on Lake of the Ozarks. Okay, the Lake of the Ozarks is primarily a highland reservoir. That means it's deep, it's clear, and it's rocky. Okay, now so if you're fishing a smaller lake that's pretty stained, pretty muddy,
Mhm.
and vegetation and stuff like that, you can have if the wind can actually chew, make things kind of nasty over there. You might prefer more of a sunny and calm day, but it just kind of depends on where you're fishing. But yeah, that was pretty ideal for us.
Interesting. So I'm going to go back to this topic of the big fish
Yeah,
versus big numbers. For this time of year, right now, we're heading into the end of March, beginning of April.
yeah,
What baits are you choosing to throw when you're looking for that big one versus when you're looking to just go out there and catch 30 bass?
yeah.
Here we go.
The Alabama rig is going to be the easy answer here. Um,
For which one?
for big bass, I'm sorry,
For
I
big.
got
Okay.
excited when you were talking about that. I could go into the number stuff easy too.
Okay.
That's what I do every day. But
Uh,
but the Alabama rig, I just fished a tournament here at the early part of March. Is the Toyota Series tournament. Big professional style tournament, and man, the Alabama rig played big in that tournament as it has for the last couple of years. And it's just, man, this is one of those baits that gets hung up a lot. It's very frustrating. You got to have a big rod to throw it. I've got this on a 7'9" heavy action rod, a 55-pound braid. This is more of a musky rod than a bass rod. And it gets hung up a lot. It's just kind of frustrating to throw all day.
mhm.
But it's one of my favorite baits to throw as long as the water's cold. I mean, you catch big ones on it. You can cover a lot of ground with it. as long as they're relatively deep, as we get, moving along here in March, they're going to get shallower and A-rig's not going to be as strong, but A-rig is great for catching big ones. These Tackle HD swimmers are awesome. I love them. I mean, you get quite a few in a pack. They last good. You got a pack around here somewhere for them. But they've had them for quite a few years,
Mhm.
and they're just awesome. I mean, they've got a great shimmy to them. You might be able to see it a little bit more on this bait here. This is not one I've got on an Alabama rig. This is one I've got on an underspin, and you won't see it until you see the bait in person, really. But can you kind of see a little bit maybe? Oh, there's
Yeah,
like a little tip right here.
absolutely.
They designed that, and that gives them a little extra shimmy when they're going through the water nice and slow. And they don't have a lot of salt in their baits, and so they hold up a lot better. Some other brands, they put a lot of salt in there, and well, the bait gets torn up pretty quick after you catch a few. And you know that works. That works great. I mean, that's great for covering ground, great for fishing deep brush piles. And that's another thing about these live scope fish finders or forward facing fish finders easier than you can see any other bait. And that's what we're doing. We're looking at the brush pile, we're looking at the fish, we're throwing our bait over there. We're getting into this, where we can see it on the screen, and then we're reeling it by the fish. And that's one of the big changes in fishing the last couple of years is this forward facing sonar, man. It's awesome. It's literally changed how we fish. And so that's great. As
So
we get into,
that's
more of
what you're choosing for when you're going for size. You're
yeah.
going for that Alabama rig with the swimmers on it. What are
Yeah.
you doing? What are you doing when you're just out there for pure numbers?
The jerk baits are just awesome. Um, Hopefully we can see this one. This one
Mhm.
of the fiddlesticks, the
Okay.
shad pattern.
Okay.
I've got on 10-pound test on a 6'3" rod, medium action, a shorter, smaller rod, lighter line. We're catching everything with it. I mean, you're catching a 10-inch bass, you're catching a crappie on it. Next thing you know, you got a 5-pound bass. We've got a lot of shad in this lake. Some of the shad have been dying, especially when we just had a cold front this past Saturday come through. Instantly, those shad started dying. We started seeing a few of them, floating up on the side. Jerk baits are great for covering ground. They're great for calling the bass. Your jerk bait is really going to run about 5 to 6 feet deep. And if the bass is in, 10 feet on the bottom or 12 feet on the bottom, he's going to hear it up above him. He's going to come up to inspect it. You twitch it a couple more times and they can't handle it. I mean, it's been a classic, you know, pre-spawn bait for as long as I can remember. And I've been fishing since, I've been fishing jerk baits, not necessarily fiddlesticks, but I've been fishing jerk baits ever since the mid 90s. And, then they've been around for longer than that. And now we're coming out with these baits that are actually, much better, easier to cast than ever before. Better colors, better hooks. It just, technology has helped everything in fishing. And that's the jerk baits are one of them. I mean, there's these fiddlesticks, man, they're so loud. I don't know how many rattles they've got in them, but they've got quite a few. And the thing suspends right off the right out of the box. I mean, it's just you don't even have to do anything to it to make it work. And a long time ago, we had to do all kinds of stuff to make those baits work because they would float really high and just it'd be out of the strike zone before the bass really wanted it to, before they could really catch up to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting. So everything that you've mentioned so far, people can order online. Website's right there below me, tacklehd.com. Before we move forward, before I forget, I need to plug these displays you see behind me. I've got retail displays here in my home, which is my wife just loves. But the cool thing about these is Tackle HD is now in about 120 Walmart locations for the very first time.
wow,
And
I
when
heard
each
that
of
was
these
going to
stores,
happen. But that's a big deal. That's great
it
for
is.
those guys.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal for the company. So what these stores are getting, and it's stores from basically mid-Missouri down through Arkansas, they're getting these two things you see behind me, and they're like end cap shippers, end cap displays. One of them has the two different styles of Hellgramites, the 3.5-inch Nedmite and the full 5-inch Hellgramite. And then the other display is 4 packs of the original, there it is, the high def craw, 4 of them to a pack, and it's less than $5. It's like $4.80 something cents or $4.90, something like that. But great introduction into the Tackle HD bait catalog that you can now get at Walmart. So if you're in, mid-Missouri on down through Arkansas, as you're heading out to stock up for spring, pick out some new things, look for these. Look for these right there. Stock up. Great price. Durable baits. You
get a lot of them all year round. That's really what started all of this with Tackle HD. I don't know, 5-7 years ago, and I'm happy to see that's just taken off and is going to go into the big box stores like that. I mean, they've been getting bigger and bigger for the last few years, but it's just great to watch them grow. I mean, they're a Missouri company. A lot of their baits, not only like Missouri, but I mean, just to have them made in America is a big deal. The last couple of years with COVID and everything,
Yeah.
tackle stores have been, and everybody has been struggling to get product in. Well, we're starting to see a few of these companies go back to made in America, and it's just it's great to see. Not everything is made in America or made in Missouri, but quite a bit of it is. All the plastics and stuff like that, and that's just the being able to have product. After you go out and have one of these great days, in March, and you catch your personal best, or you catch the biggest stringer of bass in a tournament, you probably need to go buy a couple more of those things. Well, now you actually can go buy them, and that's
right. And you're
doing a
supporting
lot
an
of work to make sure.
American company and a Missouri company for everybody here in the Midwest. That's a cool thing. So yeah, look for these in Walmart, and everything else that we've mentioned today. You can find it, of course, at tacklehd.com. Jack, couple other things. And this is for my personal knowledge. I'm one of these pond guys. I fish a lot of small ponds, like farm pond type things. And also I fish a lot of the parks around the St. Louis area. I'm still in St. Louis. So as a primarily bank fisherman, I'm a bit limited, a lot of the times just out of convenience. I'm going to parks that are stocked throughout the years. The issue with that is, as you and everybody here watching knows, those are high pressure lakes. Those fish are seeing everything all day long. Boom, 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 stuff thrown in front of them. It's hard to have a great day out there fishing. Knowing now all of your knowledge, what what are some tips you could give people that are fishing in high pressure situations like that?
Well, really, I just talked about a couple baits that, I mean, you can use them in certain areas, but they're not great for those kind of situations. Alabama reeds are going to get hung up. The jerk bait potentially might get mucked up a lot of times with some vegetation or something like that. So both of those baits are great for reservoirs, but probably not so good for what you're looking for. A spinner bait is going to be great for what you're looking for, especially for a spinner bait like one of these Ozark flash spinner baits that, well, they just don't see that color combination very often. And it's going to be something that you can cast along the bank. March is one of those months that it's really ideal for fishing the smaller lakes. They warm up a whole lot faster. I don't know I haven't fished a small lake in a while, but gosh, I gotta think they're in the mid 50s by now. If my lake over here is in the upper 40s, I gotta say it's gotta be mid 50s, and they'll be spawning here before too long. They'll certainly be spawning probably by the April 10th or somewhere around there on some of the smaller lakes. And a spinnerbait's great for covering ground. The Hellgramite is a great bait. I tell you what, I mean, I throw all the sizes to us. The little small one, that little 3.5-inch one, I've got it on a small jig head here, one of the stealth jig heads. When you're talking about pressure, a lot of times downsizing is the way to become, to beat that. And
Really?
this is a little small bait. You throw it on a little spinning rod, and man, it gets bit. I mean, it's sometimes certain places you might catch too many small ones, but then you can always upgrade. Go to and then they've got the megamite too. I throw more of the
Mhm.
megamite in the summertime, but hey, if you put a few fish in the boat right off the bat, and you want to say, you want to swing for the fences a little bit, that's where that megabyte is going to come in play because it's a big bait. And
Yeah.
the tail action on these things is just even on the small one. Um, hopefully you can see it there. You see
Mhm.
all the little segments.
Yeah.
It that little thing, it just they really took their time when they were designing this bait. And that tail really the where the hook is kind of a little fatter and a little bit meatier. But then that tail section is just real thin and it's always moving. And so that's a great bait for a follow-up bait for when you've already found them, maybe with your spinner bait or maybe with one bait we haven't talked about is their square bull. It's a shallower running crankbait. I throw a lot of the crankheads because I live and work on this deeper lake, but the square bill, here it um, is something that you could really cover a lot of ground with.
Mhm.
Make a lot of your casts parallel to the bank as you're walking along the banks. And I mean, I remember back in the day doing that. And and so this will go through the cover pretty well. You got to finesse it through the wood. You got to finesse it around rocks, but they're really made for being around cover. Make no doubt about it. And so you want to have about 14-pound test, preferably monofilament on there. And and like I said, make your cast parallel to the bank. Don't be casting out in the middle. Especially if you get some warm days and you got a warming trend, or in the afternoon, evening, that's when you want to parallel your cast. If you get a cold front, well, then maybe I would understand a little bit more casting out in the middle of the ponds. But and pretty soon we're gonna be in the middle of buzzbait season here in just a few weeks from now. It seems like this March is really warming up nice. It feels great out there. I mean,
Uh,
today was a great day until it started raining. The last few years, man, it seems like March has been kind of cold around here in the
yeah.
Midwest, and
Yeah, we've
not
gotten
this
late
year.
snow the last couple of years. Interesting.
Yeah, the
Um,
buzzbait.
yeah, let me see what you got.
Now, this is not going to be a good bait for you know it might not be a good bait for your son to throw, but for you to parallel the bank with that thing,
Uh,
and not right now, but pretty darn soon, man.
mm,
I mean, the buzzbait's gonna catch the biggest fish in the lake.
you think about mid-April?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Yep, you're exactly right. And
interesting.
it's still spring, so you're gonna have to follow your weather,
Yeah,
fronts. We're not done with cold fronts. We're still gonna be, there's gonna be one or two more big ones in the future. So
yeah, man. Well, before I let you go, just curious about some of your personal bests down at Lake of the
yeah.
Ozarks since you've been living down there. Throw out some numbers.
Oh gosh, I mean, I've helped people catch numerous big catfish in the 60-pound range. Well, not that many, but a couple in the 60-pound range. 30s, 40s. I do a lot of catfish trips in the summertime. They're fun.
I love
Um,
catfish fishing.
yeah, yeah, it really is kind of fun. I haven't done anything since like any catfishing since last September, so
Okay.
I'm ready for it now.
Mhm.
But, I don't know how many big crappie we've caught and just limits of crappie. I mean, I took a guy out yesterday. We had, I don't know, we cleaned 45 crappie. Um, that's normal. I had a customer catch a 10-pound, 11-ounce bass here a few years back, on that spinner bait. It was before Tackle HD had them. It
Mhm.
was, but it's the same Ozark flash spinner baits, the exact same thing. And that color is called chartreuse and white. It's my favorite color. And yeah, 10 pounds, 11 ounces out of Lake of the Ozarks. He beat my personal best out of Lake of the Ozarks. My personal best out of Lake of the Ozarks was 9 pounds. I did have a 10 pounder out of small pond though. I had a 10.02 in early April. And my customer's 10-pound, 11-ounce bass was March 15th. So it's that time frame like I was talking about,
Mhm.
where, you need to get out there right now as much as you possibly can because, once, May, June comes around, you'll catch big ones. You'll catch fours and fives, and you'll actually have a lot more consistent luck,
Mhm.
but you won't have those opportunities to catch the true monsters like you do now. So,
Right on.
but yeah, I mean, I've helped people catch hybrids and, other, big white bass and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's like I said, I started guiding in '03, so it's been a little while, and I take people out almost every day. So
So your website, correct me if I'm wrong, Lake of the Ozarks fishingguide.com.
yes, yep. And I've also got another website. It's called fishinglake.theozarks.com. So
Okay.
either one of those will get you in touch with me. Sometimes I'm on the water. I mean, if you call me, I try to answer, but I can't really talk for long periods of time, when I'm with customers.
Right.
Um, but you can email me. You can go to ozarks.com, and you can always text me too. My phone number is area code 573-434-2570. And yeah, I mean, just I'm glad to be a part of all this, and I'm glad to see Tackle HD doing well. And they're just a bunch of fishermen that own and operate this company. They're
Mhm.
not, they're businessmen, but they're fishermen first and foremost, and
Yeah,
that's great
absolutely.
to see.
Well, great to reconnect with you, man. So glad to see you doing well. And for anybody that's going to be down at Lake of the Ozarks anytime soon, go catch some amazing fish. Look up Jack Uxa, Lake of the Ozarks fishingguide.com. And again, there is his phone number on the screen. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Tackle HD channel. Look for these things behind me in Walmarts throughout Missouri and Arkansas. And for anything else you heard mentioned on the show today, just visit that website right there, tacklehd.com. Jack, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.